The notification lit up my phone at exactly 6:47 p.m. on March 15th, my 35th birthday. Michael's name flashed across the screen with a message that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my place in this family. "Don't wait up, everyone's at my promotion party instead." I stared at those words, sitting alone in my empty apartment with a grocery store birthday cake I'd bought for myself. The candles I'd carefully arranged earlier suddenly looked pathetic in the dim light. Everyone was celebrating my brother's promotion to regional sales manager while I spent another birthday completely forgotten. My phone buzzed again. Mom this time. "BTW, I put the $4,800 dinner on your card. Hope that's fine." $4,800. For a celebration I wasn't even invited to. I typed back a single word. Noted. That night, I sat in my living room, the same living room where I'd hosted every family gathering for the past 8 years because I was the only one with a space big enough and nice enough. The same living room I'd furnished with money from overtime shifts and weekend consulting work. The same living room where I'd celebrated everyone else's achievements while mine went unnoticed. I thought about Linda Brown, the senior financial analyst who'd just received her 3rd promotion in 5 years. Linda Brown, who'd increased her department's efficiency by 23% and saved the company over $2 million annually. Linda Brown, whose birthday was apparently less important than her brother's Tuesday night work dinner. For 35 years, I'd been the invisible daughter, the one who handled the family's financial emergencies without complaint, the one who co-signed loans, covered mortgage payments during Dad's unemployment, and somehow always had room on my credit cards for unexpected family expenses. I was the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who never needed celebration because I was so independent and didn't care about that attention-seeking stuff. But sitting there with my sad little cake, I realized something that made my stomach drop. This wasn't new. This was a pattern that had been building my entire life, and I'd been too busy being the good daughter to see it. I pulled out my laptop and opened my financial tracking spreadsheet. Yes, I'm that organized. What I found when I filtered for family expenses made me physically nauseous. Over the past 8 years, I'd contributed $127,000 to my family. Not loans, contributions. Money I'd never asked to be repaid because family helps family. Michael's down payment for his house, $15,000. Mom and Dad's kitchen renovation, $22,000. Michael's wedding, $18,000. Dad's surgery copay, $8,500. Michael's kids' private school tuition assistance, $31,000. Emergency car repairs, credit card payments, vacation funds, and countless dinner bills charged to my card because Linda's got it. $127,000 to people who couldn't even remember to text me on my birthday. I closed the laptop and walked to my kitchen, where the birthday cake sat untouched. 35 candles waiting to be blown out. I'd bought it hoping maybe someone would surprise me, maybe someone would remember. The optimism felt embarrassing now. My phone rang. Michael. "Hey, Lynn. Thanks for covering dinner tonight. The whole team was there. Dad gave this amazing speech about family pride and success. Mom cried happy tears. It was really special." "I'm sure it was," I managed. "Oh, and happy birthday or whatever. I know you're not big on celebrating stuff." Not big on celebrating stuff. When had I ever said that? When had I ever indicated that I didn't want my achievements acknowledged or my birthday remembered? I'd never said that. They'd decided that about me because it was convenient. "Right," I whispered. "Not big on celebrating. Anyway, I'll talk to you later. Thanks again for dinner." He hung up, and I stood alone in my kitchen, holding a phone that felt like evidence of my own stupidity. How had I become the family ATM without realizing it? How had I been so busy providing that I'd never noticed I was being taken for granted? I lit the 35 candles and watched the flames flicker in the darkness. For the first time in my adult life, I felt truly alone. Not the independence I'd been proud of, but actual loneliness. The kind that comes from realizing the people you love most see you as a resource, not a person. That was when I noticed the family group chat notification I'd been ignoring all day. With trembling fingers, I opened it. The messages went back hours. Michael. Promotion celebration at Romano's. Dad's picking up the tab. Mom. So proud of our successful son. Dad. Michael's treat tonight. Charged to Linda's card, obviously. Michael. Lowell. Dad, stop. She'll see these. Mom. Oh, please. Linda never checks her phone during work hours. Dad. Good point. Our responsible daughter. Always working. Never complaining. Michael. Unlike some people, I actually appreciate what family does for me. Mom. Some children just understand their role in the family dynamic. I scrolled up further. Weeks of messages. Months. They'd been discussing me like I wasn't even in the chat, discussing my money, my responsibilities, my role as the family's financial backup plan, joking about how I never minded covering expenses, planning outings and celebrations and charging them to my accounts like it was automatic. There were screenshots of my Venmo payments to them, shared with laughing emojis, text threads about how to approach me for money, strategies for making requests sound like emergencies or family obligations. Mom. Linda's so responsible she never says no to family. Dad. That's what we raised her for. Michael. Best sister ever. Never asks questions, never keeps score. But I was keeping score now, and the tally was devastating. I kept scrolling, finding gems like Operation Linda threads where they discussed my dating life with concern, not because they cared about my happiness, but because a boyfriend might interfere with my availability to them. Messages about how my obsession with work was perfect because it meant I'd always have money for family needs. They'd created a version of me that suited their purposes. Linda the workhorse, Linda the giver, Linda who doesn't need emotional support because she's too independent, Linda who doesn't celebrate birthdays because she's above that shallow stuff. I'd never said I was above celebrating birthdays. I'd stopped expecting them to remember because they never did, and it hurt less to pretend I didn't care than to keep being disappointed. The worst message was from 3 weeks ago. Michael. Sometimes I feel bad about how much Lynn covers for us. Mom. Honey, that's just who she is. Some people are givers. Linda gets satisfaction from providing for family. It's her love language. Dad. Plus, she makes good money and has no real expenses. No husband, no kids. What else is she going to spend it on? Mom. Exactly. We're her family. This is what family money is for. My love language. They'd decided that financial servitude was my love language. I sat on my kitchen floor, 35 candles still burning on the cake above me, and felt something fundamental shift inside my chest. This wasn't love. This was exploitation disguised as family dynamics. I wasn't a daughter. I was a resource they'd all agreed to share. For 35 years, I'd been proud of being the reliable one, the one they could count on, the one who had her life together enough to help everyone else. I'd worn that identity like armor, telling myself that my worth came from my usefulness, my generosity, my endless capacity to give. But sitting there in the dark, I realized that I'd been funding my own invisibility. Every time I paid for something without being asked to be repaid, I reinforced their belief that my money, my time, my energy, my life, belonged to them. Every time I accepted being forgotten or overlooked, I taught them that I didn't deserve consideration. The candles had burned down to nubs, wax dripping onto my nice granite countertop. 35 years of birthdays, and this was the first time I'd seen the truth clearly. My family didn't love me. They loved what I provided. And the difference between those two things was about to change everything. I blew out the candles in one breath and made a wish I'd never made before. I wished for the courage to stop being the person they'd trained me to be. In the darkness of my kitchen, with birthday cake wax hardening on expensive countertops I'd paid for myself, I began to plan the most important conversation of my life. Not with them, with myself. About who Linda Brown actually was when she wasn't busy being everyone else's safety net. Outside my window, the city continued its March evening routine. People coming home from work, from dinners, from celebrations they'd been invited to. Normal people living normal lives where birthday invitations were extended and family members were included in important moments. I pulled up my banking app and looked at the $4,800 charge from Romano's. Dinner for 12 people. 12 people celebrating my brother's promotion on my birthday with my money while I sat alone with a grocery store cake. For the first time in my adult life, I felt something I'd never allowed myself to feel about my family. Anger. Pure, clean, righteous anger that cut through 35 years of trained compliance and people-pleasing. Tomorrow, I would start asking questions I'd never asked before. Starting with, what would happen if Linda Brown stopped being available? The answer to that question would destroy the carefully constructed dynamic that had defined my entire life. But as I sat in my dark kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of my own willful blindness, I realized that some things needed to be destroyed, even if one of those things was the version of myself I'd spent 35 years perfecting. The morning after my birthday, I woke up with the kind of clarity that only comes after your entire worldview implodes. I'd spent hours the night before reading articles about narcissistic family systems, financial abuse, and something called scapegoat children. Every paragraph felt like someone had been watching my life and documenting it. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't ungrateful. I was a textbook case. By 6 a.m., I was sitting at my kitchen table with my laptop, 3 legal pads, and a determination I'd never felt before. If I was going to extract myself from this family dynamic, I needed to understand exactly how deep I was buried. The financial audit took 4 hours. Every transaction, every emergency loan, every casual dinner charge going back to when I'd gotten my first real job 8 years ago. I categorized everything. Actual emergencies versus convenient requests, money I'd offered versus money they'd simply taken, promises to repay versus assumptions I'd cover it. The results were staggering. Of the $127,000 I'd contributed, less than $8,000 had been for actual emergencies. The rest was lifestyle maintenance. Michael's mortgage payments when he wanted to take expensive vacations, Mom's shopping sprees charged to my cards, Dad's golf club membership renewals, private school tuition for Michael's kids because public school wasn't good enough for brown children. I'd been subsidizing a lifestyle they couldn't afford, and they'd convinced me it was family obligation. My phone started buzzing around 10 a.m. Group chat notifications I'd been ignoring since last night. Mom. Linda, honey, your dad needs the car registration renewed today. Can you handle that? You're so much better with paperwork. Dad. And while you're out, we need groceries for Sunday dinner. Your mother's making that roast you love. Michael. Lynn, can you grab my dry cleaning too? It's on your way. Your way to where? I hadn't told anyone I was going anywhere. They'd just assumed I'd drop everything to handle their errands, like always. For the first time in my adult life, I typed a word I'd never used with my family. No. The response was immediate and telling. Michael. No? What do you mean, no? Mom. Honey, are you feeling okay? You never mind helping with little things. Dad. Linda, we're family. Family helps family. I stared at their messages, seeing the manipulation techniques I'd been reading about. The immediate concern for my mental state when I deviated from expected behavior. The guilt about family obligations. The minimizing of requests that weren't actually small at all. Instead of explaining myself, I typed, I have other commitments today. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, Michael. Since when do you have commitments on Saturdays? Since I decided my life belonged to me, I thought, but didn't type. That afternoon, I drove to the other side of town for an emergency therapy appointment. Dr. Sarah Martinez came highly recommended for family trauma issues, and she had a Saturday cancellation. Tell me about your family, she said, and for the first time in my life, I told the truth. Not the polished version I usually shared about being close-knit and supportive, but the actual truth about being the family financial institution. Dr. Martinez took notes silently as I walked through decades of forgotten birthdays, unacknowledged achievements, and casual financial exploitation. When I finished, she set down her pen and looked at me with the kind of professional compassion that made my chest tight. Linda, she said carefully, What you're describing is a pattern of financial and emotional abuse. You've been conditioned to believe that your worth is tied to your utility. Hearing it said out loud by a professional made something crack open inside me. "But they're my family," I whispered. "They love me." "Love and exploitation can coexist in families," she explained. "But healthy love doesn't require you to sacrifice your financial security and emotional well-being for other people's comfort." She gave me homework. Document every financial request for the next 2 weeks. Note the language they used, the urgency they claimed, and how they responded when I asked questions. I started immediately. Sunday dinner was a masterclass in manipulation. I arrived at my parents' house, the house I'd helped them keep during Dad's unemployment, with a new awareness of the dynamics at play. "Linda!" Mom hugged me with unusual enthusiasm. "We missed you yesterday. You seemed so stressed in the group chat." Stressed. Not assertive, not busy. Stressed. "I wasn't stressed," I said calmly. "I just had other plans." "Well, next time just tell us," Dad said from his recliner. "We worry when you act different." Different. Like having boundaries was a personality disorder. Michael arrived with his wife Sarah and their 2 kids. Sarah had always been polite to me, but distant. Today, I watched her interactions with fresh eyes and realized she'd been trained to see me as the family resource, too. "Linda, thank God you're here," Sarah said immediately. "Emma needs new soccer cleats, and you know how you said you'd help with sports expenses." I'd never said that. I'd paid for soccer registration once because Michael claimed his bonus was delayed. Now it was apparently an ongoing commitment I'd never agreed to. "Actually," I said, pulling out my phone, "I'm trying to track my family expenses better. Can you send me a breakdown of what sports costs run annually?" The request created an immediate tension. Sarah looked to Michael, who looked to Mom, who looked to Dad. Like I'd just asked them to explain quantum physics. "Honey," Mom said carefully, "since when do you track things like that? You've never minded helping with the grandchildren." "I'm just trying to be more organized with my budget," I replied. "Adult stuff." The adult stuff comment hit exactly like I'd intended. It implied that not tracking expenses was childish, which it was. Dad cleared his throat. "Speaking of budgets, we need to talk about the house insurance renewal. The payment's due next week." "Okay," I said. "Are you handling that, or do you need me to call the company?" Another uncomfortable pause. "Well, it's usually easier if you just pay it directly," Mom said. "You know how your father is with phone calls." Usually. Like this was a normal arrangement we'd explicitly agreed to. "How much is the insurance?" I asked. "Around $3,000, Dad said casually. "You know, the usual amount." I pulled out my phone and opened my notes app, typing visibly. $3,000 for house insurance. Got it. I looked up at them with my best helpful smile. "Should I add that to the spreadsheet where I'm tracking family expenses? I've got the mortgage help, the car payments, Michael's wedding, the kids' tuition assistance." The room went dead silent. Even the kids stopped chattering. "Spreadsheet?" Michael asked slowly. "Oh yes," I said brightly. "It's fascinating, actually. Did you know I've contributed over $127,000 to family expenses in the past 8 years? I had no idea it was that much until I added it all up." Sarah's face went pale. Michael started opening and closing his mouth like a fish. Mom and Dad exchanged a look I couldn't interpret. "Honey," Mom said in the voice she usually reserved for calming down upset children. "Families don't keep score like that. It's not healthy." "You're right," I agreed. "Which is why I'm getting better at setting budgets and boundaries. Speaking of which, I should probably head home. I have an early meeting tomorrow." I didn't have an early meeting. I had a phone call scheduled with a financial advisor Dr. Martinez had recommended, but they didn't need to know that. As I gathered my purse, I heard Dad mutter to Mom, "She's acting strange. Like she's keeping track of things." Keeping track of things. Like basic financial awareness was suspicious behavior. The drive home was surreal. For 35 years, I'd left family gatherings feeling drained and somehow guilty, like I should be doing more, giving more, being more available. Tonight, I felt energized, powerful, even. They were panicking because I'd started asking questions about money I'd been providing without question for nearly a decade. That week, I implemented Dr. Martinez's documentation strategy. Every request got the same response. Let me check my budget and get back to you. The results were illuminating. Tuesday, Mom needed $400 for unexpected car repairs. When I asked for the mechanic's estimate, she couldn't provide one because she hadn't actually gotten the car diagnosed yet. Wednesday, Michael needed $200 for his kids' spring break activities. When I asked what activities cost that much, he got defensive and said I was being weird about money. Thursday, Dad needed $600 for prescription medications. When I offered to call the pharmacy directly to pay, he said never mind, they'd figure something else out. Friday, Mom wanted me to book and pay for a family vacation, to spend time together. When I asked about dates and budget parameters, she accused me of making simple things complicated. By Friday night, I realized that most of their needs evaporated when I asked basic questions. They weren't needs at all. They were automatic requests to the Linda ATM, and the ATM was malfunctioning. The breaking point came on Saturday morning. I was at my favorite coffee shop finally reading a book for pleasure instead of researching family trauma when my phone exploded with notifications. Michael. Emergency! Sarah's in the hospital! My stomach dropped. Sarah was young and healthy, and they had 2 small children. Michael. Need $5,000 for emergency surgery deposit ASAP. Mom. Linda, honey, call us immediately. Dad. Family emergency. Need you now. I called Michael's number, my hands shaking. This was exactly the kind of situation where family should help family, and I felt guilty for even questioning it. Michael, what happened? Is Sarah okay? He paused. She's getting her gallbladder removed. It's emergency surgery, and insurance won't cover the whole thing up front. Okay, what hospital? I can drive there now. Another pause. Actually, you don't need to come. Just wire the money to my account and I'll handle everything here. Something in his tone made me stop walking. Which hospital? St. Mary's, he said quickly. St. Mary's doesn't require surgery deposits, I said slowly. My friend Jennifer works there. They bill insurance directly for emergency procedures. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Michael? Look, Linda, it's complicated, okay? Just trust me and send the money. I want to talk to Sarah. She's in surgery right now. Then I want to talk to the billing department. Jesus Christ, Linda, what is wrong with you lately? Sarah needs surgery, and you're acting like I'm trying to scam you or something. The anger in his voice was real, but it wasn't the anger of someone whose wife was in emergency surgery. It was the anger of someone whose story wasn't holding up under basic scrutiny. Give me the surgeon's name, I said quietly. Why do you need the surgeon's name? Because I want to send flowers. Click. He hung up on me. I stood in the middle of the coffee shop parking lot staring at my phone as the truth hit me like ice water. There was no emergency surgery. There was no hospital deposit. There probably wasn't even a medical issue. My brother had just tried to steal $5,000 from me using his wife's fictional medical emergency. I drove home in a daze, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. When I got to my apartment, I found 17 more messages in the family group chat, all variations of urgent pleas for money and questions about why I wasn't responding to this family crisis. Instead of answering, I opened my laptop and did something I'd never done before. I investigated. A quick search of social media showed Michael and Sarah at a wine tasting event yesterday, both looking perfectly healthy and posting about date night dreams. Sarah's latest Instagram story was from this morning, a yoga class selfie with the caption, "Saturday Self-Care Vibes." Not exactly the posting behavior of someone facing emergency surgery. I kept digging. Michael's LinkedIn showed he'd been exploring new opportunities for the past 6 months. His company's website no longer listed him as regional sales manager. The promotion dinner I'd paid for? The one where Dad gave a speech about family pride and success? It had been Michael's goodbye dinner. He'd been fired, not promoted, and he'd celebrated getting unemployment benefits with a $4,800 meal charged to my credit card. Everything was a lie. Everything. I sat on my couch, surrounded by evidence of systematic deception, and felt something I'd never felt before. Pure, crystalline rage. Not the hurt disappointment I'd been carrying for years, but clean, righteous fury. They hadn't just been taking my money. They'd been lying to get it. Creating fictional emergencies, exaggerating minor issues, and now fabricating medical crises to extract cash from someone they saw as an unlimited resource. I wasn't their daughter. I was their mark. My phone rang, Mom's number. "Linda Marie Brown," she said in her sternest voice. "You get down to that hospital right now and help your brother. Family comes first, and I don't know what's gotten into you lately, but this selfish behavior stops today." Selfish. Asking questions about how my money was being spent was selfish. "Which hospital, Mom?" "St. Mary's, of course, where Michael told you." "What's Sarah's room number?" Well, I don't have that information right now. The important thing is getting the money transferred so they can proceed with the surgery." "Mom," I said very quietly, "I just saw Sarah's Instagram story from an hour ago. She's at yoga class." The silence was deafening. "Instagram can be delayed," Mom said weakly. "No, Mom, it can't. It's a live story with a timestamp." More silence. "I don't understand why you're being so difficult about this," she finally said. "When family needs help, you help. That's what we raised you to believe." "You raised me to be a bank," I corrected, "and the bank is closing." I hung up on my mother for the first time in my life. Within minutes, my phone was buzzing with calls from Dad, then Michael, then Mom again. I declined them all and turned my phone face down. For the first time in 35 years, I was unavailable to my family. And the silence in my apartment felt like freedom. That evening, I called Dr. Martinez's emergency line. "They tried to steal $5,000 using a fake medical emergency," I told her. "My brother lied about being promoted, probably lied about having a job at all, and they've all been treating me like an ATM for years." "How are you feeling right now?" she asked. "Angry," I said immediately. "Furious, actually. But also relieved, like I'm not crazy for thinking something was wrong." "Anger is appropriate here," she said. "You've been systematically manipulated and financially abused. The question now is, what do you want to do about it?" What did I want to do about it? I wanted to stop being Linda the provider and start being Linda the person. I wanted to keep my money for my own goals and dreams. I wanted relationships based on love and respect, not financial dependency. I wanted to matter to people for reasons that had nothing to do with my bank account. Most of all, I wanted them to understand that actions have consequences, that 35 years of taking someone for granted eventually catches up with you. "I want to cut them off," I said. "Financially, I mean. Completely." "That's your right," Dr. Martinez said. "But be prepared for the reaction. When you stop enabling a dysfunctional system, the system fights back." She was right. But as I sat in my apartment that Saturday night, surrounded by evidence of their lies and manipulation, I realized I was ready for whatever fight was coming, because for the first time in my life, I was fighting for myself instead of against myself. The old Linda would have sent the $5,000 and apologized for asking questions. The old Linda would have made excuses for their behavior and blamed herself for being suspicious. But the old Linda had died last night when I blew out 35 birthday candles alone. The new Linda was about to show my family what happened when you mistake kindness for weakness for 35 years, and they weren't going to like meeting her.